want to go over probably one of the most consistent questions that we get all the time of where do I start? What can I do right now to grow my agency? Should I buy leads off of a vendor and age leads, or should I hire a marketer to do Facebook, or should I learn Facebook myself? So many different aspects of how to grow an insurance agency. But the way that I look at it personally, and within all of our businesses that we have, are based on a cost per acquisition, especially right off the bat. As you're trying to figure out what to do, how to do it, you have to take yourself back to business fundamentals. And in those business fundamentals, it comes down to knowing your numbers, which we're going to get into here in just a minute. But it comes down to, how can I get the most new customers for the least amount of money out of my pocket to acquire those new customers, right? The CPA, cost per acquisition. And if you're in a place where you're just starting, or you're switching lines of business, or maybe you were in the industry for 20 years and now you're trying to get back into it, and there's a whole new way of operating these days, right? Through this internet world and all of that. And the number one thing that we have found to be most important is the cost per acquisition. How much is it costing you to get a new customer in the door? And so in order to know that, in order to figure that out, what's going to be my cheapest way of getting new customers? Well, we have to look at two factors, right? We have to look at a traffic source and a conversion process, right? Obviously, Insurance Lead Machine is a conversion process. That's what it's all about. So when considering the traffic sources, where can I get leads? Most of you have gotten, referrals most of the time and operated off of that. And which is not, unfortunately, it's not a predictable way to scale a business. You can't tell me how many referrals you're going to get next month or the month after that. There's just no predictable way to know. So the alternative is to know your numbers in terms of how many leads you need to get in order to have X amount of conversations, in order to quote X amount of policies, in order to close X amount of the ones that were quoted, and so on and so forth, right? So, and typically the way that this works is you work backwards. You look at what your goal is, right? So we have conversations with agents every single day that, what are your goals? Where's the business right now? And where are you trying to go? And when we ask them, how many quotes are you sending out a month right now? And they're say, 10 or 15. Cool. So what's the goal? And they say 50, right? So 50 a month. Okay, awesome. Based on the 50 a month, how many conversations do you need to have in order to quote 50? If you don't know those numbers, this is where you need to just start, right? And get a starting place. So if my goal is to quote 50 a month, and say I've got a 50% conversion rate to quoting from people that I talk to, right? So if I'm going to quote 50 a month, then it means that I need to have conversations with 100 people a month, right? And then taking that a step further is, how many outbound outreaches do I need to send, or how many efforts do I need, how many times do I need to send something in order to have 100 conversations? Do I need to, if you have a 50% response rate on your text messages, then based on 100 conversations, you would need to send 200 text messages in order to have 100 conversations, in order to quote 50, in order to close 25, given that the conversion rates are 50% all across the board. So what we're looking at here is the best way to grow right now, right? Given those numbers, breaking that down, what is the cheapest way to get those, say, 50 quotes into 25 closed? So if you need to send 200 text messages, say that's 200 leads, right? You send text messages, 200 leads, and you get 50% response, right? That'll give you 100 conversations, 50% conversion rate to quoting. That'll give you 50 quotes, 50% conversion rate to closed, give you 25 new customers, right? So how much do I need to spend to get 200 leads, right? So now we just know that we did the breakdown of what my goal is into just an average breakdown of conversion rates. If you have any current past knowledge, if you've been in the business longer than 3 months, you should have these numbers of what it is, whether it was referrals, whether it was personal outreach or social media, doesn't matter. Take numbers from wherever you can, because numbers is how you're going to win the game. So, so based on those numbers, breaking down 25, 50, 100, 200, and now I want to know how much it's going to cost me to, my video just cut out, but I think we're back. Okay. So let's pull up the whiteboard real quick, and I just want to show this real quick. So say my goal is say 25 new customers. It's going to take me 50 quotes. It's going to take me 100 conversations and 200 leads in order to have 25 new customers, which this would be 25 out of 100, that'd be 25% minus a 12.5% conversion rate from leads to customers, right? You can break that down. You can map out the numbers however you want to, but so now what I'm looking at is my cost per acquisition. How can I get 200 leads for the cheapest so that my 12%, 12.5% conversion rate keeps me under a certain amount cost per acquisition, right? So say 200 leads. Let's look at the different options. You have Facebook ads, which will probably end up being, depending on what lines of business you're looking for going through, Facebook ads, $2 to $5 a lead, or aged leads, old leads, say 20 cents per lead, right? Obviously, your conversion rates on Facebook ads are going to be a lot higher than aged leads, right? This is why you need to know your own numbers, because it's going to be different for everybody. It's going to be, I'm just giving you a general framework to follow so that you can know where the best place is for you to start. Typically, what we recommend, people that are new, people that are trying to get their foothold back in the market, that are in a new area, that are in a new product, whatever the case, the best thing to do is go after the cheap leads, right? Your conversion rate is going to be a lot lower, which means you're going to have to buy more of those leads in order to have the same amount of new customers. But typically, this is the way to go. So let's work it this way. Say we spend $500 in leads, in aged leads, right? And say the cost was 50 cents instead of, let's just put this at 50 cents instead of 20 cents. So at 50 cents at 0.50 cents per lead, it equals $250 worth of leads, right? So it's going to cost me $250 to get 500 leads. Or sorry, it would be 200, 500. I am way off here. Okay, it'd be 1,000 leads at 50 cents per lead. Would be 1,000 leads. Okay, so say we get 1,000 leads. God, I butchered that little section there. Say we spend $500, right? And so that's our top number. That's what we spent. Now let's see how many customers we can pull out of it. Take this number here, divided by the number of customers we get, and that's what it cost us to get a customer out of this batch, right? So let's look at it like, $500 in aged leads got me 1,000 leads. And then let's play the conversion rates all the way down, okay? So we're just going to keep it even at 50%. So 1,000 leads. And what happened here to conversations? 50%. So then we had conversations with 500 leads. Okay, and the next one down, we quoted 250 leads, and then customers, we got 125 new customers, right? We take the 500 divided by 125. And that's going to be 4. So which means it costs us $4 per acquisition. And this is way off, guys. This is like these numbers. These numbers are not accurate to the industry. This is just a general framework to follow to know what you need to spend on what leads in order to reach your goals. Okay. Say we went and spent, well, let's look at it for Facebook. Okay. Say we just put this at $3 a lead on Facebook. Okay. And say we spent $500 in leads. Let's just use the same number. Say 500 in Facebook leads, which gave us how many leads? It'd be about 150, I believe, 175 maybe. 166 leads, right? Conversations, convos, divide that by 2 because it's 50%. So we had 83 conversations. We quoted 41.5, 41.6 something ish. Just say we quoted 42 and we closed 21 new customers, right? So the different traffic sources are going to cost you different amounts. All right, so 500 now divided by 21. Now that's a $23.80. So let's say $24 per acquisition of new customer. Right? So these are revenue sources. These are revenue streams. The difference between these two, right? Most people would go and try Facebook and then didn't convert anything, so they would shut it off and then go try this and then don't convert anything and then shut it off and then try this over here and shut it off. Thing is these are pillars of the business that have to be standing. And once they are built, once this revenue stream is built, right? We've built a pipeline, campaigns. We've got the lead source. The lead source pushes it into the pipeline. The pipeline kicks off the campaigns. At a certain point, I jump in and I start doing the quoting, and then this thing follows up, and then we convert, and we start to know our numbers for that one revenue source, right? And where most people would quit and move on, you have to keep pushing through to where you get to a point where you're converting something, so that you know what your conversion numbers are. If you're not converting anything off of one of these sources, before you shut it off, look at all aspects. Look at your sales process. Look at the communications that are happening. Remember, we talked about the congruency that needs to happen between where that lead came from and what you're saying to them in the initial conversations. Because if that is off, it will not work. You will not get any responses. You will not get any conversions, and you will end up in a place where you think Facebook leads suck. That's just reality of it. That's just what happens. We've been doing this for years and years, and I've seen it time and time again. But looking at all aspects of your sales process allows you to identify the one little piece that might just need a little bit of a tweak. And as soon as it tweaks, then everything starts moving forward and you convert and you make sales, right? So before you go and shut off a lead source, make sure that you've analyzed all aspects of it, your sales process, the follow-up process, the congruency between what they're seeing in the ad or how they are acquired as a customer to what you're saying to them. That will play a huge part in your conversions and your numbers. But knowing this, once you get something set, once you start converting something from somewhere, do not shut it off to go to another source because the leads might be better. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to cut a water source off from a small village that needs water, even though it's just a trickle, whenever they found a new water source and it brings in a flood, right? They're still going to want that trickle, because what happens if the flood dies and that dries up, right? You want to have multiple revenue streams, multiple sources feeding into the business with particular processes for each source, so that you can sustain in the long term, hire people, have processes and systems for how these revenue sources are managed and how they're converted into business, into cash, so that you can start growing a team around those processes and systems. Okay. So we always recommend starting with aged leads. We believe that it will be your cheapest cost per acquisition. It will be the easiest managed in your system, and it's just all around the better deal. You can get leads for 20, 30 cents. We have a vendor that we can connect you with. He will patch the leads directly into your system every single day if you wanted to, automatically, and put them into the campaign. So all you got to do is pick up the phone when people start responding and just carry the conversation to close, right? Just make it easy on yourself. Your number one objective is to have as many conversations for as cheap amount as possible. So our reactivation campaign that's in your system already averages out about 30%, meaning if you have 100 leads dumped into your account every single day, and those leads are 20 cents, that's $20 a day, right? $20 a day to have 100 leads dumped into your account every single day with a 30% response. That means that's 30 conversations for $20 a day. That's less than $1 per conversation. That's $1.50. It's like 75 cents, 50 cents, 75, 50 cents, whatever it is per conversation. And depending on your conversion numbers, you can start to figure out what your cost per acquisition is and if that's a profitable source for you, right? It doesn't matter if, like of these, customers, you had 125 customers here out of 1,000 leads, it's still a 12.5% conversion rate, but maybe 750 of these leads that you didn't quote told you to screw off. Most people would have ran and not used that lead source anymore, as opposed to finding the 125 that said yes, and you got a $4 per acquisition, right? Don't stop just because you started to see bad numbers. Understand your numbers, understand your sales process and what the numbers look like at each stage, what those conversion numbers look like, so that you can drill down and pinpoint where a problem might be if you need to increase your conversion rates or get a conversion in general. This is how to do it, by understanding your numbers, understanding your pipeline and the stages of your pipeline, and breaking down your goals and how to get there for the cheapest amount of money possible. Hope this helps.